All right, welcome back in, and thank you so much for joining us here on this Monday. It is May 11th. You're watching right now here on the CBS 8 app. Now, for many of those of you who have been watching our show, you know by now that May 11th has been scheduled on the calendar for quite some time, in large part because, Jack, we are now finally getting to the beginning of the Larry Millete murder trial.
Yeah,
Today, we see jury selection begin.
Yeah, it's been 5 years. We've had at least 5 delays in court. There, of course, has been, I think anticipation is a light way of saying it. Of course, you know, this has real life impacts on the community. So it is a relief to see this kind of process take place because, for the family of Maya, it's something that they believe is long overdue.
Yeah, long overdue. And for them, there's been a lot of pain in this process. They're seeking what they believe is justice that they need. But what we wanted to do here with this show, because of course we have the time and we have the research that Jack, that you've compiled here, is we have gone through 5 years of our reporting here at CBS 8 to put together sort of that blueprint, that timeline of how it is that we got here, the key characters involved, Larry, Maya, Maya's sisters, their kids. So let's dive into this because I think that, Jack, you did a really good job of really painting the picture, going to who it is that even Larry and Maya are prior to them even meeting each other.
Yeah, and we got a lot to cover. We have Alex Lai coming on. She's gonna join the show and she's gonna talk about what we're actually gonna see today in court potentially. So without further ado, like you said, let's get into it. And I think the best way to start is the picture of a couple who fell in love at a very young age in Hawaii, moved here to Southern California, and started building a life together. We'll start with Maya, who, of course, disappeared 5 years ago. Her family moved to Hawaii from the Philippines in the 90s. She's one of 6 kids in the family, Maya, of course, being the youngest. Maya, also her real name is May. However, oftentimes she is referred to as Maya. We will refer to her as Maya as we continue on. Her sister described her as a great student. The smart one is what they would say, and oftentimes it would be to a point where, as is often in a lot of these immigrant communities and these immigrant families, the kids would often be the translators for the parents because the mother did not speak English well. So it was her and her sister who took a leading role in helping raise the siblings, helping support income, and helping adjust the family to life in the United States and in Hawaii. Larry Millete, a lot less in our reporting that talks about his upbringing, but we know a few things. A lot of it has to do with different Freedom of Information Acts requests that we've gotten in other reports that we've had, especially as it relates to run-ins with the law. We know that as a teenager, Larry was arrested for a gang-related stabbing incident in the Bay Terraces neighborhood. This was near what I believe at the time was a 2-story McDonald's. And soon after that, he and his family moved to Hawaii, which of course is where Maya was, allegedly following that incident. That suspect, by the way, eventually recovered, and from his time in growing up to moving to Hawaii, to moving back here to Southern California. Outside of that stabbing, a relatively clean record. Outside of that, the only real knocks that he had on his record from there on until, of course, what we see now is 2 traffic tickets in Riverside County.
Yeah. And so, again, I think that does sort of paint the picture because people are wondering, where did signs potentially start? Depending on how it is that they feel about this case, where were the trouble signs? And so far, the picture, again, doesn't really seem to paint that. Like, obviously, that arrest was pretty notable, but that happened at such a young age. We're talking about 15 here. And then eventually, they move to Hawaii. So following his release from juvenile hall, he moves to Hawaii with his parents, as you pointed out there. That's where he meets Maya. That's where, they begin this relationship. They actually meet in high school. And so that's just sort of how it all ends up for them in terms of just beginning that relationship. Now, Larry's father, Benito Millete, a 20-year Navy veteran, Reported to Pearl Harbor in 97. This is in 1997. Larry met and married Maya when they were both teenagers in Hawaii shortly after. So Benito Millete is also a person who plays a role here, especially with the kids at a later portion in this story. But it's a notable name nonetheless, obviously, because of the sort of the future role that he will play. Now, we mentioned that military service. Larry actually would go on into enlist in Hawaii. He attended boot camp in the Great Lakes in Illinois, received additional training in Virginia before being assigned to the Navy Medical Center in San Diego back in December 6th of 2001. He served in the Navy from 2000 through 2005, received multiple commendations, including a Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal and a Good Conduct Medal after his discharge. Larry continued working as a civilian contractor in the optometry department at the Navy Medical Center in San Diego here. As for Maya, she was also involved in the Navy. She worked at the Navy Southwest Regional Maintenance Center, more commonly known as SWRMC. Again, that also here in San Diego. Now, they were married as teenagers, technically, and they built a life together in East Chula Vista. Again, pretty far out there as far as, again, what people are maybe more accustomed to when they're talking about Chula Vista, maybe a little bit closer towards the 5. They were pretty far out there where that house was. Now, at the time of Maya's disappearance, they did have 3 children, and the oldest at the time was 11, now 16, which is again feels crazy to say because again just how much time has gone by here. But they were ages 9. They were ages 4, 9, and 11. It was actually their daughter's 11th birthday that she did not show up for. That was the cause for concern for the family, especially surrounding Maya's family. Now, I do want to point out, too, is that a large part of the reporting that this has taken us as well, too, has been the custody of Maya and Larry's children. They are finally now in the custody of Mari Chris, that being Maya's sister. That is something that, I have reported on, and that custody battle, because it was Larry's family, Benito and his wife, that were in care of the children after Larry's arrest. And that was a bit of a sticking issue because, those in favor of Mari Chris getting custody were pointing out that, they were the parents of the person accused of murder. How is it that they could be awarded, the custodianship of the parents? And then there were concerns, and then there were times in court where Larry, as well as the parents, were admonished by the judge for Larry being able to contact them, either after the time they were allowed to, or when they were told not to, and sort of sneaking away some of the rulings that the judge made. And that all sort of paramount resulted in the fact that then Mari Chris and her husband were allowed to take the kids, who they describe as thriving and almost straight-A students. Now, back to that 11th birthday. Again, they had 3 children, 11, 9, and 4 at the time of her disappearance, now 9, 14, and 16, and it was that birthday party. I remember being at one of the very first search parties for Maya, and the overwhelming theme that we learned was that Maya was never the type of mother that would miss this big of an event. No matter what was going on between husband and wife, that the 11th birthday would not be something that she would skip out on. And that's when we, as reporters, really started to get the sense that something more nefarious potentially was afoot.
Yeah, because not only was it, it's a difference between a birthday party that you're doing in your backyard, for example. This was a trip up to Big Bear. So this was, an hours-long car ride. This seemingly was a big event for a child. And like you said, there was a reputation that was developed, and you could see by a lot of the searches, a lot of the response that you saw from the community, that this was not something that she would do. So to kind of go along with your point, yes, completely. And you mentioned the custody of the children, which I think is important because, obviously the circumstances in which we saw it play out in real time wasn't the way in which it probably would have happened had a disappearance not have happened. But I think it's fair to say that there was going to be some sort of custody battle that was going to happen regardless of what the events turned out, because that marriage that they had together was on the rocks. And I think that's one of the biggest aspects of this story that we're gonna touch on here. We're gonna get a little bit more detailed here in the next block. We'll take a break in between this, but to kind of summarize what we're seeing there. So this is just about 1 week before Maya disappeared. She told a group of family members that she was planning to divorce Larry. There had been a number of issues with their marriage at that point. Again, like I said, we'll go into the further details about that coming up here in just a few minutes. She had reportedly moved in with her brother and sister-in-law for a period of time in 2020, saying that she, quote, needed space and that being away from Larry gave her a clear head. Several family members, witnesses as well, testified that in 2020, Larry began calling and texting relatives almost every day, seeking for advice on their marriage, what they can do to rekindle that spark, take amends, to work on the issues that they had, oftentimes telling them that he was becoming, quote, desperate to seek some sort of resolution. And one of the biggest aspects of those relationship problems is an alleged affair. And we'll get into how this plays into everything. He threatened to expose an alleged affair that Maya had with a coworker if she didn't stay with him. And you know, this is something that you see all the time. But quickly you came to see that, you know, of course is what is being alleged, but there is some documented evidence regardless that shows that this became an incredibly toxic relationship. And you see a man who is desperate to win his wife back in the face of a divorce. And of course that leads to where we find ourselves today, is a man who is about to stand trial, being accused for the murder of his wife. So, of course, this all leads up to, we mentioned 2020. It's 2021, specifically January of 2021, where we really start to see these cracks show into just how bad this relationship could get. And of course, that leads to Maya's disappearance.
Yeah. All right. I think now would be a good time. We'll go ahead and take a break here. But when we come back, we're going to be discussing the disappearance, what led up to, again, a lot of the searches that we saw take place, Larry's eventual arrest, and how it is that we got to this trial. Again, we're going to be having our Alex Lai in studio also to go over jury selection today, what it is that either side might be looking for in potential jurors, and how long that can go. We're going to discuss all of that later in the show, but right now we're going to take a quick break. All right, welcome back. This is Right Now here on the CBS 8 app, and at this moment, we are diving into the case of Larry Millete, his accused murder of his wife, Maya Millete. The jury selection in that trial will begin, but what we've been doing here, Jack, on the show has been diving into the history of the last 5 years. Everything in this case, all of the bookmarks, if you will, the chapters that exist to sort of create what it is that we have now, which has all led us up to the disappearance of Maya herself. Now, this was something that occurred in January of 2021. Maya was last seen around her home on January 7th. Security camera footage later revealed, and this was some pretty significant reporting that was done, because we had pretty much been casing the Chula Vista, the house, again, very far east Chula Vista, and it was our David Gottfredson who had basically come up with this this video that again has turned out to be explained as much of not much of nothing, but just we can't determine what it is. And what the video was from the day that she was last seen, the night, the sort of like early morning, late night hours, if you will, if my recollection serves me correct. But there were loud bangs, about seven bangs, I believe, that could be heard throughout the neighborhood that evening. Now, obviously, for a lot of people, they made the assumption that those were gunshots, because you're dealing with the disappearance of a woman. We had begun to hear the rumblings of the unhappy marriage. Larry had done some very early on, I do not believe with us, but Larry, very early on when this was still just a disappearance case, Larry had done some unusual interviews with some other television stations here in town. That sort of, again, as I pointed out there with, the way that people would talk about her as a mother, the context of missing that birthday, people began to sort of piece together that something was not right here. And I think that may have been the part of the reason why David Gottfredson, our longtime investigative producer and reporter who has retired this year, or I should say actually just last year, was able to get that, right? Now, for investigators, though, they were unable to determine definitively that those noises were gunshots. I mean, we even had the FBI working on this, but due to the poor audio quality, they were not able to determine that without a shadow of a doubt, right? So that's not going to be something that is likely going to be used in this trial as definitive gunshots. Now, I'm not clear if this is something that will eventually be played. I'm not sure. We'll have to see. That's what the trial will have to show us. But that was a pretty significant moment, I remember, in this case, was when we had that video and we ourselves.
Yeah. And what was equally as, I would say, vexing, especially for investigators as this continued on, was where Larry was right after this happened, because this is another thing that to this day is there are conflicting accounts about what happened exactly after the time in which we hear those loud bangs, in which the time in which we know Maya was last seen. Larry was gone from the family home for approximately 11 and a half hours, more specifically 11 hours and 21 minutes. He told family members he went to the beach with his 4-year-old son. More specifically, he went to Solana Beach and then later went to Torrey Pines. Now, this is something that has been disputed because some lifeguards who were at Solana Beach and different people who were there said that they don't have any account of Larry being there at that time. Another important note is January 7th, that day. That was the day Maya was supposed to had contacted a divorce attorney to schedule an appointment. So we see this increasing amount of desperation. It was talks of a divorce. This is action on a divorce. So the timing is interesting here. Again, investigators could not find any evidence that Larry was at the beach that day. This is the beginning of these twists and turns of what has essentially now
leaving
been
the phone at home. That was another big
leaving
one
the phone
as
at
well,
home
too.
because they wanted to see if they could confirm where he was at that time. And then once they later discovered the phone, they realized that it had not left the property. So there was no way in which of knowing whether or not Larry was telling the truth at that point or not.
Yeah. And it began sort of this rabbit hole of inconsistencies in Larry's story. Now, of course, what many investigators will tell you is that inconsistencies don't necessarily indicate guilt. But the behavior and the stories and the reporting were getting stranger and stranger and stranger. We do know that, of course, that it's not just been the Chula Vista Police Department, but multiple federal agencies, including the FBI, have assisted in the investigation here for the larger part of about 4 years here. We have seen a number of vigils and searches. I've been to about a handful of them. Family, friends, community members, all going out there, especially out in East San Diego. But then we started to really see the search expand to a number of different hiking trails, to lakes and things like that, like really expanding the search area. And then you sadly did start to hear it become more about a recovery. You heard the word recovery being used as opposed to the search for Maya. Now, the relationship, the alleged motive, that all sort of began to be outlined in the arrest warrant that eventually was issued, Jack.
Yeah, and not only the arrest warrant, multiple warrants throughout this investigation. The actual arrest took place in October of 2021. So there's 9 months in between the initial disappearance and when this arrest was made. So throughout those 9 months, multiple warrants, at least. I want to make sure I have this number correct here. I got it down here. I think at least 80 warrants.
It sounds about right.
So somewhere around
between
80
the
warrants.
search warrants, the family's home.
Yeah,
was searched
out of this time.
Yeah.
So, but of course, this was a marriage that was deteriorating, and this was a husband who wanted
At least 82 warrants
to
were
salvage
served.
it. Yes, 82. Thank you for confirming that with me. So like you mentioned, details about the extent to which Larry was trying to salvage this relationship. In some of the interactions that they had together be known as time went on. So and we're going to go through a couple of examples here. Of course, like we mentioned, Larry had discovered that Maya was allegedly engaged in an affair. So a lot of this centers around that as well. But a lot of it also has to do with how, some of the things that he did on his own, how family members, especially those close to Maya, viewed him, and some of the statements that they made about his behavior, not just in the relationship themselves, but in large mutual gatherings. So to get into it, investigators found evidence that Larry Googled some things, like plants you take to never wake up, search for drugs such as Rohypnol, which for those of you who don't know is an incredibly powerful sedative. Family members described his behavior as controlling, stalker-like. Part of that was also Larry began showing up at Maya's job unannounced. And then this, I think, has garnered the most attention, and the one that is certainly to be a key part of the prosecution, especially considering that this is going to be a trial in which no body has been recovered, which we'll come to learn is a lot more common than people might be led to believe, especially in a first-degree murder trial. I was surprised by this as well, so we'll get into the details then. But it started to be known that from September of 2020 up until the day Maya vanished, Larry would begin paying for spells and hexes. Essentially, if for those of you who know online, there's a trend called an Etsy witch, essentially, where it can be something fun. Like you go to Etsy, you pay this witch $10 or whatnot to make your favorite sports team win, or something like that. It's a very niche thing that you see online that people can use for whatever it is. However, this was used for different purposes. Essentially, was trying to cast spells on his wife, on Maya, to initially it was for relatively benevolent reasons. It was a man who wanted to get his wife back. It was to reconsider, to make him love him, to stay in the marriage, to not be having an affair. But as the months went on, and as more money was spent, actually the total dollar amount that we know of is $1,154.05. And this is over the course of a few months. It started to become more or less dependent on love and more dependent on dependence.
Yes.
It would say, we need her to be hurt. She needs to be in a position where she needs to rely on me, whether that is emotional pain, whether that is physical pain. And all of this continued, and then it abruptly ceased on that date, January 7th, the date that Maya disappeared.
Yeah. And Larry even went so far as to leave a review for a spellcaster, which, again, was part of the evidence, but also, as you said, just sort of outlines the sort of strange nature. And this is something that, when you've spoken to Maya's family, in particular her sister Mary Chris, they were concerned for Maya, even, prior to her disappearance, about Larry's behavior. You heard about the behavior, as you pointed out, the almost stalker-like behavior, the jealousy. I think the big word was jealousy that they used, and unfounded jealousy.
I mean, there was an instance where, another instance about kind of sort of this way to do some subliminal persuasion, subliminal, coercion, I think is the word, which is, it has been supported by CBS 48 Hours. There have been texts that show this. There was an instance in which they were sleeping in separate bedrooms.
Yes.
And there had been a Bluetooth speaker that was essentially hidden or placed intentionally, allegedly, in Maya's room, and it was playing, this cohesive. It was subliminal persuasion is how it was described. Essentially, it was a track. Whether that was, I'm not too sure if it was an audio track or if it was more of a podcast thing, saying "No more men." Yeah. It was something that would play quietly as she was sleeping as a way to, coerce her into stop having an affair and to restart the relationship. And this was something that Maya had gotten confirmation that was something that Larry did, and later texted her family saying, with a screenshot of it, quote, "My marriage is definitely over." Paraphrasing, but essentially that was one of those final nails in the coffin.
And there at least is one report of potential physical altercation between the two. Now, this is according to a friend. I do not believe that there was ever a police report that was filed. However, according to a friend of Maya's, Larry did once choke Maya into unconsciousness. Now, again, that is according to a friend. I just want to make sure that we have the best picture here as fair as possible. And then there was a 2-minute video that was secretly recorded. This is one of the rare opportunities. There are videos of Maya, who was a singer, played guitar as well, too. There are videos of her singing and playing guitar. But again, this is one of the stories where the central figure you don't really ever get to hear from because she's missing, presumed to be dead. And we have learned in sort of the pretrial motions and the evidence that has been brought up and in the indictment of Larry is a 2-minute video that was secretly recorded by Maya of an argument between her and Larry. It was played in court during the very first preliminary hearing, and it's the first time that you really got to hear her talk about their deteriorating relationship, their fight. They argued about that affair that Larry suspected her of having. And it really was that first and really only time that we got to hear her sort of defend herself or to talk about something that was this serious, that this was a direct, topic tied to her disappearance and now her husband's murder trial on and she being the alleged victim. So police say that about a month after Maya's disappearance, Larry stopped cooperating with their investigation. I remember this was also one of those big moments. There was the large fire where about 4 months after, the DA says that a neighbor saw Larry starting a fire in the backyard where papers, credit cards were found in the remains. You brought up the 82 search warrants that were served. A big part of that was also the guns that Larry had, and also sort of the transferring of weapons that was occurring at the time when this investigation was heating up to his parents. His parents would have the guns, but is that the same thing? There was this back and forth about whether or not. So that was also a big part of the custodial trial as well, too. But just sticking on the timeline here, Millete, Larry, was named a person of interest in the summer, but again, eventually was arrested in October. He has pleaded not guilty. He has said that we have heard varying accounts of defenses, but he believes Maya is alive and is somewhere out there, but he has nothing to do with her disappearance and nothing to do with her murder.
See, he has been steadfast in that belief,
Yes.
even, and he has gone as far in various on-camera interviews, even since he has been arrested, and ever since he has been, in jail. He has remained steadfast, and he has said that he has been portrayed negatively by the media, as we'll get into later. That has at least some effect as to why the trial has been delayed as much as it has to do with his defense team's doubt that he is able to get a fair shake in court because of the media attention that has been tended to this issue. So and of course, it's not just murder. You mentioned the guns. First-degree possession of an assault weapon. According to court documents, he had at least 20 guns in the home, is what's being alleged there by the court. Ordered to surrender them in 2021. He faces up to 25 years to life in state prison if convicted. But of course, all of this took place in 2021, Chris. It's 2026.
Yep.
This is this is 4.5 years.
Later,
from the initial arrest to where we stand now, which still to this day, we'll get into what we're going to see today in court and what we'll hear from, especially in our later broadcasts in the evening. But this is still not opening statements.
No.
This is jury selection. So this is still a process that's continuing, and we still don't have this date yet for opening statements. So, of course, the reason why, and like we've said before, over 5 instances in which we have seen this trial get pushed back and pushed back and pushed back for a multitude of different reasons, whether that is accusations of improper conduct by the defense or the prosecution or right to a fair trial or where is the trial going to take place in general. Multiple different reasons is why this has happened, Chris. But of course, that is something that you and I are going to break down. We're going to get into here in just a few minutes, correct?
Yes, let's do it. We'll go ahead and take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. All right, welcome back in. This is Right Now, and we have been breaking down the history of the disappearance of Maya Millete and how her husband, Larry, is now being tried for her murder. Of course, that trial set to begin here. We have jury selection beginning, I believe
it's
today.
already taking place.
Taking
8:30
place
was the
8:30.
time.
So we are an hour
course,
into jury selection, which we will talk to our Alex Lai in about 10 minutes from now. We've gone over the history between Larry and Maya, her disappearance, and the erratic and sometimes strange behavior, I think it's fair to say, from Larry exhibited prior to his arrest and then his arrest. But
yeah, that's certainly how the family of Maya described it. And,
yeah.
And some other individuals, investigators, of course, the district attorneys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an accurate portrayal.
And so now it is May 11th, 2026. He was arrested in October of 2021. Many people wondering why it took so long. Well, let's go dive into the charges, but also the case that was presented, and again, the reason that we've seen for the delay. Now, again, we should point out the body has not been found. I do think that there was a bit of a delay either in charging Larry or even in the initial proceedings with Larry to try to see if some of the last-second search efforts could turn up a body. That was seen as sort of a missing piece in everything because, at least for us, we thought there may not be a case without a missing body, which we have since learned is not always the case.
And you mentioned the multitude of searches that were either community organized, that were done by investigators. So, I mean, not a lot of there's a lot of missing cases that aren't afforded this multitude of searches. So, of course, as much as there is the capital and there's the public urgency to do it, it seems like that there is that it makes sense to delay it to see if that yields some results.
But there's allegedly enough circumstantial and forensic evidence to prove a case, which obviously they feel comfortable enough with.
That's certainly what prosecutors say.
Yes.
And this is what CBS 8 spoke to a former San Diego County District Attorney, and what they told us is that as we mentioned this earlier, not only are these instances, that being a murder trial where the body of the alleged victim has not been recovered, not only is this not uncommon, if done correctly, and if charges are made when prosecutors truly do have enough circumstantial evidence to make a case, can often have a high success rate. So, one of the big things that we've been hearing about the potential defense, and we'll get into that in just a second, is if I killed her, where's the body?
Yeah.
That isn't necessarily an ironclad defense if there's enough circumstantial evidence. So legal experts, they point to evidence such as, like we said here, the spells is perhaps one of the oddest, but also perhaps one of the best pieces of evidence that we might be able to see the prosecutors use here, because like we mentioned earlier, it did start with relatively benevolent goals. It is, I want this girl to love me. I want Maya to take me back. I want her to run to me and say that we want to build this marriage up back from where it is at this point. But, of course, it started to turn to a much darker place. We started to hear about harm, whether that was breaking a bone, so that she needed that attention, and she had to depend on Larry, which is what legal experts here told us, and this is their words describing it, homicidal ideation. Essentially, the idea that he is now wishing that harm was inflicted on her to satisfy his needs in this relationship.
Yes. And I wonder if this is a situation where, oftentimes you never see a suspect take the witness stand. I mean, that is not likely going to be something.
He has not ruled it out.
So, and again, I wonder just the things we have heard about Larry's temperament, especially. If that is going to be a move that the defense will try to talk him out of. I know that he is very adamant about wanting to set the record straight. but you get in front of a prosecution who has a way of getting you to lash out, to be angry, even though you regardless, again, we don't really know the truth yet. I do wonder if, the prosecution has a way of getting a rise out of someone, especially someone who they know they are doing their research. You talk about homicidal ideation. If they believe that you have that capability of wanting to think about and to be motivated to murder someone like the mother of your children, your wife, I do truly wonder if that is something we are actually going to see. That is a part of the fascination with this case is, does someone like Larry take the stand? We do know there are going to be a number of witnesses, 25 the prosecution has already listed. That was just for a preliminary hearing in 2023. That list could have expanded by now. It could have shrunk, but it's likely that it may have also expanded as well too.
I know some of the ones that we've talked about was a neighbor who, for example, who had witnessed that fire and suspected that it was Larry. But it also included people, receptionists for the law firm in which we saw Maya reach out for a divorce attorney prior to her disappearance. So it is a wide spectrum of people. So. Of course, they allege that Larry was angry at Maya, of course, for having an affair, marriage on the rocks, leading to violent arguments, and as time went on, her eventual death.
Yeah, and so the defense has been sort of flirting with this idea that that they believe that Maya was still alive, but now we have since learned that, as we shift gears here into what the defense is looking at, that now they are maybe looking at the fact that someone other than Larry could have been responsible for her disappearance, meaning that Maya did not voluntarily leave her family, but rather someone else may be responsible. And this is not me making light of this at all, but this is what the OJ trial often used as well too, is that the killer may still be out there. You heard OJ saying that. Again, OJ famously accused of murdering his ex-wife and was found innocent despite being found liable in civil court. And he oftentimes would say, I believe the killer is still out there. That defense of that it was someone else, that it was not me. Now, obviously, not a whole lot of similarities in this trial, there being a body in that one and so forth. But just the idea that, yes, that there could be someone else that's responsible.
It's about opening up avenues of reasonable doubt.
Right.
Yeah.
Putting up the doubt so that you can't prove it was me, but I can't prove it was someone else, but there's a non-zero chance.
Essentially saying we're at a stalemate.
Else. Right, exactly. And a stalemate gets you what? It gets you innocent. It gets an acquittal. It gets an acquittal. And so a dispute did emerge over which of Larry's statements the prosecution could present at trial. The defense is accusing the prosecution of sort of cherry-picking a lot of his statements without the full context of conversations and so forth. And then the defense does want to reduce just how many slides are used showing Maya with her extended family, arguing the photos were prejudicial. The judge agreed to pare down the numbers, but ruled that the photos themselves remain relevant. So you are going to be seeing photos of Maya with her family. Again, they're going to be building up, the prosecution that is, sort of Maya's, character, that this was someone who would not leave her family on her own, even though that, again, the defense is switching up, but that this is someone who was a loving mother. This is someone who put up with her marriage as long as she could until it just couldn't be taken anymore, and that it was Larry who could not stand the sight or the idea of losing Maya in his life.
And that's a good example of the many instances in which we see this trial take place. Of course, be delayed is what I meant to say, because of course we mentioned the hope that a body would turn up, but at the same time, every single detail is in a case of this magnitude is enough to warrant a hearing on its own right. So you see multiple instances where we have a hearing from the prosecution to build the case up, and then you see a hearing from the defense to tear that down. And that is the tug of war that you see in cases like this. Of course, this original trial date was set for September of 2023, so 2.5 years ago. But proceedings have been postponed, like we said, multiple times. Legal motions, like I just mentioned, that's the big one. Also, scheduling issues, attorney availability, multiple reasons. We know that in January of this year, Maya's sister, Mari Chris, made an emotional plea for the judge inside the courtroom, urging him not to grant another delay, emphasizing the toll that is taken on the family. Despite that plea, the judge did rule in favor of the request to push the trial from March to May, which is, of course, getting started today. In April, so we're just going off of what we've just seen here in the past few months. The defense filed a 29-page motion accusing Deputy District Attorney Christy Bowles of prosecutorial misconduct, including eliciting false testimony and admitting evidence the defense claims she knew to be illegal. Of course, the judge denied that motion to remove the prosecutor. They actually wanted her to be replaced with a California AG prosecutor. They also tried to get it dismissed entirely. That, of course, was a failing effort. The judge also rejected defense requests to move the trial out of Chula Vista and to import jurors from outside the area, saying that they essentially he cannot get a fair trial. As we kind of mentioned this earlier, South Bay residents, there have been a multitude of them who not only have perhaps known Larry, known Maya, maybe have taken part in the searches, but of course, regardless of whatever their participation was or their knowledge of them on a personal level, this was a big story. This garnered national attention. It still continues to garner national attention. Of course, you made the OJ analogy. This, of course, isn't to the degree on a national level, but on a local level, there's a lot of people who are aware of this. And however, they said that they did not find the evidence that the defense made in this motion high enough. It didn't reach that bar to do it. So it is staying here in Chula Vista.
And also part of, and you said this, part of the reason why we also saw a lot of the delay was the fact that Larry, his representation for a while was really up in the air. In fact, I was looking to see his original attorney who represented him from the time of his arrest was Benita Martinez. I remember meeting her, and I want to say that she was a private attorney. She did not have a whole lot of defense experience. Later was accused of by his new legal team that they defrauded the family and mishandled funds and allegations that Martinez has, of course, denied. But just sort of, again, trying to set the picture that he was sort of set back by his first attorney, and that we saw things get delayed. And I remember also being in another court proceeding where we had finally gotten his new attorneys, and they're like, we need to get briefed on this case. We are not ready to go to trial yet. We need to go through this. So legal representation was a big part of this as well, too. Now, the defense did win one big thing, which, of course, is the fact that we will not have cameras in the courtroom. However, a sketch artist has been approved. So let's go over, before we jump into our interview with Alex Live, because, again, we are going on hour 15 right now of jury selection. Cameras not allowed. Sketch artist has been approved. Our reporters will be allowed. They will be allowed to be inside the courtroom. We are going to be able to bring our laptops, other devices inside. I've told you that courtroom by courtroom, sometimes I can bring in a laptop, and sometimes the bailiff, I pull it out, and he's like, no. Like every judge normally has their own rules, even down to laptops, and they just don't want anything to accidentally play. There is also some who don't want information in a courtroom to be like live streamed out or to be tweeted out, if you will. Some are just very old school. They don't want any disruption, so forth like that. But we will be allowed to post real-time text updates as they go on. Opening statement still TBD again. We are looking at least a 3-month trial. We don't know when that's going to start yet. Jury selection is happening right now. Could be 2 weeks. We'll see. Alex Lai is going to help us fill that out a little bit better. But that sort of brings us to where we are today. We've had the number of delays. We've had the very strange allegations and evidence and everything that's been uncovered, the 48 hours piece that was done. But here we are. It does seem like we are just about to start here with this trial. But I will say, every time we have felt like we are getting there, there has been some twists and turns. So just be ready for anything at this point is what I would say.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's just a built-in reaction to maybe not hold your breath too much. But of course, this is one of the largest developments that we've seen in a long time. So like we said, the courtroom is active right now.
Yes.
to explain what is actually happening in that courtroom, we have Alex Lai joining us. But before she joins us here on the show, we're going to take a quick 2-minute break, and we'll be right back.
All right, welcome back. This is Right Now here on the CBS 8 app. For those that have been watching, you know, we have been breaking down the very latest in the murder trial of Larry Millete, again accused of killing his wife, Maya Millete, who has been missing since January of 2021. Her body has still not been found. A case that has captivated the area, but also abroad. It's gone now to jury selection. We have finally gotten there. Now, this is a process that could be quick, it could be easy, but it could also be extremely difficult, and it could take a while. So we want to get a breakdown over what this will entail. Our Alex Lai spoke to some experts. Take a listen to her story, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about that after the break.
It's a case that has drawn attention across San Diego for years, which is one of the biggest challenges when it comes to picking a jury.
That's sort of like the elephant in the room, is that this trial has generated so much pretrial publicity.
I spoke with defense attorney Gretchen von Helms, who is not connected to the case, about why jury selection could be especially complicated here. Von Helms says it will likely be difficult to find jurors who haven't already heard about the case, so both sides will be looking for people who can set aside anything they may already know and make decisions based only on the evidence presented in court.
That's how the jurors are supposed to feel when they see Mr. Millete. No way, prove it to me. What has he done wrong? Prove it. So that's the stance that they need to be sitting there on the first day of jury selection, is prove it to me.
A total of 278 potential jurors filled out questionnaires to help determine whether they would be a good fit for what's expected to be a 3-month trial. About half of them are expected in court tomorrow for the first round of jury selection.
Are probably ones that have indicated that they can sit through the jury service, they can hear stuff about being unfaithful, being not, following through with your marriage vows.
They may have also asked whether people could remain fair regarding the fact that Maya's body has never been found.
To deprive someone of their liberty to live in the world as a free person, you have to have proof that the person did whatever they're being accused of beyond a reasonable doubt. So it's a very high standard, very heavy burden that the prosecutor has.
The judge and attorneys will ultimately select 12 jurors and 6 alternates.
Okay, here we are now, Alex Lai in studio with us. So, Alex, you've been obviously with CBS 8 for quite some time here. You obviously came in during the search for Maya. We've gotten now to jury selection. What was sort of your reaction, your analysis here to putting together that story and really learning about the jury selection process?
Yeah, totally. I mean, many of us have served on jury duty. You and I are reporters. We sit in the courtroom all the time.
Yeah.
This is going to be different than your typical jury selection. And that is it for a few reasons. It's not going to be, that typical, you go in, maybe they ask it. They didn't even, when I went in, they didn't even really question us individually. It was kind of just like, hey, anyone have problems? This is going to be a, much more thorough process. And so I talked to a defense attorney who's not related to the case about how that jury selection will look. And some of the biggest challenges, one, this has had so much publicity because it's been so long. It's been 5 years since she disappeared, and her family is actively, to this day, still searching for her. So there is so much publicity around this case that there aren't, honestly, very many people who haven't heard about this. So taking that into account, typically they'd want somebody who has never heard about the case, is going in with fresh eyes and can say, looking at the evidence, X, Y, and Z, I haven't heard anything about this before. I don't have any ideas about if he's guilty or not. That likely isn't going to happen, is what these legal experts are saying. So instead, they're kind of pivoting and saying, okay, if we can't find people who haven't heard about this case at all, we need to find people who will say, I am comfortable with taking everything I already know, pushing it out the door, and reevaluating and making decisions based on what they're presenting in court.
278 potential jurors. This is going to be a 3-month trial potentially. Do you have any idea how long jury selection, this process of trying to weed out 278 potential jurors. How long is this going to take?
So there's not really a definitive kind of answer. The legal expert I spoke with said that she's seen homicide cases take up to 2 weeks, but we were actually just talking in the morning meeting, and they started screening 3 weeks early. Usually they kind of will pass out, like, we'll just get the questionnaires that they responded now, but they already received back the answers to those questionnaires that they sent out to those 278 potential jurors. About half of them are coming in. That's still like 140 people coming in. She said they'll likely do it in 2 batches because you can't individually question 140 people at one time. You also can't fit that many people in a courtroom. But what's interesting is I was kind of like, hey, what's on these questionnaires? Like, is it just like a, can you be fair? Have you heard about this? It goes into detail. Have you experienced any sort of marital issues? Are you comfortable talking about that? Have you been wronged by somebody? Have you experienced domestic abuse? How do you feel about witch doctors? Like, all these very thorough things that relate to the case, because on one side, the defense isn't wanting somebody who has had marital issues, who has seen family members be abused, anything of that sort. But the prosecution is more interested in finding someone who's like, oh, I'm comfortable with hearing about blaming the marriage. I'm comfortable hearing about affairs. So they're both looking for different people, and ultimately the judge and then attorneys on both sides have to approve the 12 jurors and 6 alternates. So you can kind of imagine how lengthy that process is going to be to kind of weed through everyone. So jury selection today and likely several days will be going over, asking the jurors about their answers on the questionnaires. The jurors will also be able to speak privately to the judges and attorneys if they want to talk about, let's say something that they're not comfortable telling 140 other people. So, they can talk to them privately. That's also going to take time. You're going to have to go through all of these, ask people individually. And another big question is, this case, you have to have without, with an unreasonable doubt that this, like, that's the burden of proof in this case. The fact that Maya's body was never found adds an entire another layer, because if people go in thinking one thing, you have to take into the account that Maya's body was never found, and that, is usually a big part in a homicide case, because you're able to say, okay, this person is 100% deceased. We have their bodies. They are deceased. The attorney I spoke with said, if, for example, this is a super hypothetical, if Maya were to come back and they had charged Larry for her murder, and she comes back and is like, hey, like, like, that's just, she referenced Castaways, the movie. Which I thought was really funny.
You have to convince this jury that Maya is dead, and then also it was Larry who killed her. And those are, most of the time, as you pointed out, in a murder trial, there's a person who's dead. You will see very graphic images. You will see the actual body portrayed in the courtroom.
And it provides evidence if there are strangulation marks, reasons showing that they were murdered.
I wonder if they're even going to hypothesize a cause of death. Like what? Like, are they just going to say that she was dead? Like, we don't really have the full extent of what evidence the prosecution is going to, sort of pull out, if you will. But I have to imagine they really have to try to set the picture of not only is she dead, this is how she died, but then also this is why we know it was Larry who did it.
And because you would have to imagine that you can make the defense of, I did not kill her, separate from she's dead. So it seems like there's a kind of a needle that both the defense and the prosecution need to thread. We had just talked about earlier before you came on, Alex, how bodiless homicide trials aren't as uncommon as we may think, but nonetheless, it is a higher bar that is needed to clear, because you are missing a hurdle that usually starts the trial. That is a key hurdle, is the body. So that's going to be interesting. I know that CBS8, us here, we tried to get a copy of that questionnaire, but we were denied that last month before it is. It's kind of a chess match. So in terms, we don't have a date set yet for opening arguments because of how long this may take. You said 2 weeks. Is that something that we feel like, I know you spoke to this legal expert here. Is that something that we still feel like is a normal timetable here, that 2 week mark?
So she said not specific to this case that she has seen homicide cases take up to 2 weeks in jury selection. One, we have around 140 potential jurors coming in that will need to be individually questioned, and they will also potentially pull from other, the juror pool who did fill out that questionnaire, who weren't asked to return. They could potentially pull them back in. They need 12 jurors that the judge and both attorneys agree that this person can be fair. They agree to follow the law to say, to understand that Maya's body was never found. They need to consider the fact that, if Larry killed her or not. They need to come in with, an open mind, actually, is like the big question. Can you come in with an open mind? To find people who haven't already come up with, a judgment on their own can be extremely difficult considering the publicity in this case. So there's really no telling how long. We were kind of talking, they already screened the people and got their questionnaires and weeded them out. So that could potentially save time in this jury selection process, but we really do not know. It's kind of like assuming like 1 to 2 weeks. But what's also interesting that people who aren't really familiar with, court cases or how that works is once they pick the jury, opening statements can happen right after.
Yeah.
Right after. Yeah. So we
They'll take a quick break and go right into it.
We talked about it. We have a plan. We will have somebody there no matter what. We are 100% ready to get in there and hear those opening statements whenever jury selection ends. And as we mentioned, cameras are not allowed inside the courtroom. However, we will have crews in there for sure. And sketch artist was approved. So.
Yeah, our Kelly Hessedal is there right now. She has been assigned to this today. So, Alex, we really do appreciate you coming in and breaking down that analysis that you did here over the weekend.